excited to be here to do
My name
this.
is Laura Foster.
Guitar player extraordinaire slash resident fun guy at Northside Baptist
Trio Quinn. I'm actually Charlie's cousin.
Will Baker. Eddie.
Baines Blanton. I'm a junior at Lowndes High School.
Peterson. I'm a student at Lowndes High School.
All right, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you on today. Could you introduce yourself and we'll just keep on going?
Hey there. My name is Aiyana McKee. I am married to Will McKee, who is the college and young adult pastor at Northside.
Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad to have you on today. I know we tried last week, but things just didn't work out with sicknesses and everything. That is going around.
Oh, it's
everywhere.
It's been rough.
Yeah.
Like, let me tell you, don't catch that flu. Yeah, it's brutal.
No, but if you just go into your testimony, and then we'll just keep on going with questions.
Okay. So just to share like the little snippet of it, my brother and I, we were born in a not Christian household at the time. My mom was married to my biological father, and he was not a good guy. And my mom ended up leaving him, and my brother and I moved down to Puerto Rico, where my grandparents were serving as missionaries. And that's when I began to start living in a Christian household. We were about 1 at the time, if I believe. And when I was 8, my grandfather, he was also a pastor down there at the time when he was serving. And I remember him preaching, and I remember feeling convicted, and I knew that I was a sinner and I needed to get saved. So we talked that afternoon. I gave my life to Christ, and then after that, I got baptized by him. And
awesome.
Yeah, it was great. And a couple years after that, we moved up to Georgia, and I was bullied for like the way that I looked, and like the fact that I was raised in a Christian household, so you didn't curse, you didn't talk about like ungodly things, just to say that. Like when I moved to Georgia, I learned what like curse words were, and I was like, "Whoa, that's not a good thing."
What
is
like, that?
Yeah. And I was a goody two shoes. That's what they called me, and I was bullied for all of that. But it was just throughout those times that I learned, like God loves me. This is what God says for me in the Bible, and such. And then throughout that, like I learned about like music and such, and then learned how I could serve the Lord in that. And I learned how much I loved not only like serving the Lord, but like serving in different ministries and such. Right. So I got super plugged into my youth group, and I was like on praise team at church. I did youth band, and then I tried to do like outreach things, and I went on mission trips and such. And and then I started coming to VSU, moved here, got involved in Northside, and then the rest is here. So
yeah, and so actually my next question was, how did you come to Northside? Like, out of all the churches that are here, because there's plenty of them, how did you land here at Northside?
Well, it was you know how Northside has a graduation Sunday for the high school seniors and such. So my church back in Jessup had the same thing, and the pastor, my pastor at the time, he was preaching on, stay with the Lord, don't fall to the world. And he was sharing some statistics, and he talked about, at that point, 7 out of 10 Christians who are in high school who graduate fall out of church.
Right.
But now, I did my research, it's now up to 8 out of 10 students. So it's grown since the past 5 years, and I knew that I didn't want that to happen. So I went and talked to him in the summertime before I moved, and I was like, hey, what is a really good church to go and plug into in Valdosta? And he said Northside, because him and Pastor Robbie were really good friends, and he said that it would be super solid if I went. I'm like, okay. So the first Sunday that I was able to go to church since I moved to Valdosta for school, I came to Northside and I loved it. And then the next Sunday, I met Pastor Jeff and Miss Christy Scoggins. Nice. And I got involved with worship and such. And in college ministry. Yeah, so that's how I got.
They were
here.
like, "You're here, come here." Like,
Yeah, yeah.
They just grabbed you right then.
Yes.
That's cool because I know for some, it can be daunting with all the different ministries we have, but you just jump right in.
Oh yeah.
Which is really, really cool to see because, like I said, like there's like some people like they're what's all here. Like I'd love to do something, but there's so much.
Yeah.
But you know what you wanted to do, and you jump right in for it.
Absolutely. Well, the church back in Jessup, they didn't have an orchestra. They just had a band. So whenever I saw an orchestra, I'm like, no way. That's a way that I could serve. And like, I love
in a different way too.
Yeah. So I've never done that before, and then I got plugged in with the orchestra here, and then that led to like playing acoustic guitar and stuff, and sometimes singing. But it's been good. It's been super cool.
Yeah. And so, oh Lord, what have you been studying at VSU, and like, has that changed? Like, 'cause I know a bunch of people it changes, but has it changed for you?
No. So I knew that the Lord called me to music. When I was in high school, I knew that He called me to teach music. So, when I got to VSU, I currently have a bachelor's in music.
Nice.
And I'm currently working in my master's program in the Master's of Arts of Teaching (MAT).
Why do they make it such a mouthful? It's like,
that's why they have abbreviations.
Yes.
Yes. So, but that's the technical term for it. But no, it never changed. I knew that's what the Lord had called me to do, and that's something I'm really passionate about, so I just went for it.
And is that why, like, is that part of your degree? Because I know you're at Lowndes right now, student teaching. Is that, like, just a part, like, is that something you wanted to jump in and do, or is that something kind of just required of, like...
Well, it's required, but it was something that I was looking forward to.
Right.
So I'm in my student teaching for the semester, and I was assigned Lowndes High School with Mr. Bowman and Mr. Sumner. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was so funny because like one day I didn't really advertise it that you were coming, and so I just like looked in there. I was like, or I think I was like saw you somewhere. I was like, or I might have heard you said you were going to Lowndes for that, and I was like, you're at Lowndes now? What do you mean? It like, kind of shocked me because I don't think I've ever stepped foot in the band room.
Yeah.
Like. Ever, which is like really weird because I see all these kids in there and then you hear a bunch of noise coming from there. I need to one day just step in there. Like the kids don't even know who I'm like. I'm just stepping in just to look at it because like I've never been in there to like look at it or anything. Like I've seen pictures and like
it's pretty big in there. It's a big band room.
I mean, it has to be with all the kids that are in there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, how many in the what?
With marching band, there's a lot more people. But in the spring, it's concert band season. Right now, they're preparing for festival, which is where they go and play different pieces for judges, and then they get scored.
Yeah.
It's a little bit less, but in each class period, it's like 50 students,
which is insane.
Yeah.
Like and I remember like this was so funny. So we were doing something similar for chorus in middle school. It was like 8th grade. Like. Notice I said 8th grade. That was when COVID hit, so we didn't get to do that.
Yeah.
And that sucked because, like, don't get me wrong, I didn't really want to go and like get judged for that because it was nerve wracking. So I'd never done something like that. However, we put so much like time and effort into like making it perfect, and I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding! Like now we can't go, and like I can. When if something like that ever happened to the bridge, I'm sure they felt the same way. Like they're like, I don't have to get judged, but man, I really wish we did because we put so much effort in that. You can see that every football game, every like festival they go to, they put so much effort, and I'm sure that's been a joy for you to see.
Oh yeah.
As sitting in the room just watching them and like or being their teacher, helping them out, whatever you're doing, like man, these kids don't really know what they're doing. Yeah,
and that's why, and that's just one of the reasons why. Like, I love what I'm getting my degrees in, and I love what the Lord is calling me to do. Like, I just always have had a heart to serve.
Yeah.
I really, and this is not me, like, saying, like, oh, I do this and I do that. No, it's just something I'm really passionate about. Like, helping a student figure out how to fix a fingering, and then the joy in their face whenever they're able to play a part now. I mean, it just makes the world of a difference. I love it.
And, of course, you're serving in that way, God's put you in that position. Has... you found like small ways, because I know that obviously a student teacher, it's kind of hard for you too, but have you found like small ways you could spread the gospel to the students in like a small way? Or,
Well, it's funny that you say that. Well, I was actually a little bit nervous to start there just because of the people who can be involved in music and such, especially, are people who are not typically saved. And whenever I found out I was going to Lowndes, and I'd met like some of the people who are involved in like helping that program in general,
Yeah.
I was like, well, I remember I worked at band camp back in the summer, so I was like, I remember it was pretty difficult because they went out and like they cursed or they drank, and you know, I don't do that.
Yeah.
So it was hard to go back in there, but I was talking with some friends and some people who are considered like mentors and such, and they were telling me it's just like, you know, this is you trying to be comfortable and not put yourself in a situation where God can use you. So I've actually gotten to invite multiple people to church.
Yay.
And we've had like conversations and questions answered, and not only that, like I've gotten to see youth who come to church here, and just seeing how they interact with their peers and like seeing them invite, and then those students will bring their friends and they'll come talk to me and it's like, oh, this is Mrs. McKee, like she goes to Northside and like she could tell you about some of this stuff, and I'm like, yeah. So it's been, yeah, that's definitely the Lord challenging me and showing me that, like, you know, like if you let me use you, like, all the glory to Him.
Right.
So,
and, you know, we'll get to it more but later, but I bet, you know, seeing, like, the kids from Northside, like, inviting people like that, you know, encourages you, like, you know, I mean, it would me, you know, like, because, you know, of course, you know, Noah and everybody else tells us that, you know, all the time, but are they actually doing it?
Yeah.
You know, but to see that in action is really cool. Like, for example, the Bible conference, you know, getting people to come to that and things like that. And it's obviously evident that they did that during D-Now, because 175 students?
yeah.
My mind was blown. We were all up on that stage trying to jump around. I was like,
gosh.
we're going to break the stage.
Yeah.
Like, I looked around, I was like, I can't see half these kids around here right now. Like, because I'm like way down here, like, you know. And I'm like, I was just mind blown at like all these like deep church.
Yeah.
A sea of just people.
Yeah.
You know.
It's super cool. I still see them throughout the school day.
Yeah.
Like, since the past 2 weeks.
I mean, they're comfy too. Like,
they're super
They're
comfortable.
really, really soft.
Yeah.
So what is it like being married to Will? Like, and you haven't been married to him, like, was it only been around a year? Like, that just came about, right?
No, we have not been married a year yet. It's been about 8 months.
Okay, so I'm way off then.
It's okay.
Yeah.
June is still a few months away.
Gotcha.
But, I mean, everything's good. I love him. I love doing ministry and life together with him.
And I know that one thing he like hit on during D-Now with, you know, because he brought you up a lot. You know, how could you not, right?
Oh.
And, you know, one of the things he said was, you know, like, your commitment, you know, because you had to realize that, you know, because you wanted to be a pastor's wife, but you had to come in as, hey, you know, he's a pastor, so you're going to have to be that pastor's wife and be there for him. And I thought that was, like, really, really cool, you know, because I could just, and also, too, one of the things you brought up with when we were talking in the college room one night was, you know, you didn't want the college to be just like the Will and Aiyana show. You wanted more people to come in and serve and, like, you know, and to do, you know, great things. So it's like, that's cool that, you know, you are willing to take that step back to let other people serve.
Yeah.
You know, because, and not at the, you know, and not in every church that happens. You know, you got two people or like a certain group of people, they run things and then it just stays that way.
Yeah.
And, you know, people are comfortable with it and they're like, oh, well, they're doing it. I don't need to do nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't want it to get that way.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. But, you know, and I've said this to you before, and both of you, but I was sick going to your wedding, but I still showed up.
That's
I was
right.
like, I am going to this wedding. Like,
And I heard you like the SpongeBob cake a little bit more than the actual wedding
I
cake.
did because it did. Look, it tasted better. I won't lie. It did. Okay.
That's your opinion.
Like,
It's okay.
sorry, but it did.
Well, Will and I didn't even get a piece of that cake.
Really? It was gone. Like,
Yeah, it was gone by the time.
that is crazy.
Yeah, we got the actual wedding cake. It was delicious.
Yeah.
Caleb
both
did a
were
great
good.
job.
I was like, but it cracked me up when I was like, there's a SpongeBob cake sitting
Yep.
there. What? I was
Yep.
like, no, but because I remember me and Baines were there, and he's like, because he's in line before me, and he goes like, dude, there's a SpongeBob cake up there.
Yeah.
Because we're like big SpongeBob fans, and he's like, and I'm like, there's a what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, me trying to, you know, fight through mucus. I'm like, there's a SpongeBob cake up there. That was the funniest thing. Like, as I had not been to many weddings, let alone one at Northside, and I thought that was just really the funniest thing. It made my day. I was like,
It's the little things for us. Like, we're also very big Taco Bell fanatics.
yeah.
So we had to make sure we had a taco bar at our wedding, and all of the sauces that we had were Taco Bell packets.
Nice.
So it had to be that way.
And yeah, well, you're not going to run out of Taco Bell sauces.
Absolutely.
They give you like a handful of just like different sauces. I'm like, my gosh. And I know one thing that you told me that he taught you or you taught him was the like the white sauce at like at Blaze Pizza. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, we're big sauce people.
That
Charlie.
was like, well, because that was the first time I'd like gone into. I remember, I think it might have been the second time I went in there because knowing them took me in there the first time. Never been in there. I was like, what am I doing? Like, you know, because I'd never been in a pizza place where it's kind of like a Subway deal where you're building your own pizza right then. Yeah. So I went in there the second time, took my mom, and was like, okay, so this is what we're gonna do because I'm getting this white sauce because Will said it was really good.
Yes.
And he was right. You both were right.
It's so good. It's the best thing ever.
And I think I just got on the food topic because I'm really hungry for something. I haven't eaten. No, you're good. I haven't eaten. So, but what's been your experience like with, you know, just leading worship, saying like a Sunday night or the college? Like, what are some like the differences? Like, just because you know they're totally different experiences. You know, doing both. Yeah.
So my role looked different in both. With the worship ministry that's led by Pastor Jeff. I'm there serving, like I'm there playing my clarinet or my guitar, and it's super neat because I get to learn. Because Pastor Jeff also has a music degree, and then Jeff Lay as well. Like he has also been a worship leader for a long time as well. So just getting to be like under them and just see their wisdom and how they lead or how they lead worship or like how they teach and such. It's different, and it's not that something you would see like at school, but I saw in a classroom. So it's super neat how relational they are. And they're just knowledge. They're so smart. Yeah.
And that's what I said, the same thing when I came up and served like with everybody, was it was so cool to see that other side of that pastor or, you know, that staff member. Like Pastor Jeff, like we're like, you know, we're tight now. Like, you know, we're more than just like, you know, a student and, you know, the worship pastor. We're friends. Yeah. Which is really great to, you know, that because I remember I had to ask him about something and we just sat down and talked about it, and, you know, and we were good to go. Like, but it's nice that we can have those conversations, you know, because I never thought, hey, you know, if I told myself a couple years ago, hey, you're going to be, you know, friends with all these pastors, and you're going to have their numbers in your phone and all this stuff, like, never in a million years would have said that. And I'm so appreciative of that, and I know you are too. And, like, one of the things my mom brought up was that, you know, you were kind of leading the other night with, like, gratitude, like, helping them out.
Oh,
and she was like, she did a really good job with that, like, you know.
So with that was just the all ladies worship night, and I was already singing on praise team, and Pastor Jeff was playing acoustic, so I was like, great, I just get to sing and worship, it's awesome. But some of the ladies, they were having trouble with like coming in with their parts or like didn't really know the song, and Pastor Jeff was saying, like, we need somebody to, you know, stand in front of them and, like, worship with them. And he asked me to do it. So, and that's what he told me, is just worship with them. Yeah. So, and that's all I did.
Yeah. And that's so cool. Like, and I remember, it was really, because I was looking around and seeing who's all, you know, up there, because it was a packed stage. And I looked up there and I was like, they even got Miss Sherry off that piano and up there singing.
I saw that.
Like,
I thought that was great.
I thought that was really funny to see. I was like, oh my gosh.
We also, and Miss Christy, she's also somebody else who I've gotten to learn a lot from as well. Like, working with her with Kids Praise on Sunday nights. And she's so knowledgeable as well. And because she's teaching, you know, kids, and that's what I'm wanting to do. So I'm getting to see how she does that. But, where was I going with this? Oh, but yeah, like just watching Miss Christie do that as well. That was super neat.
Yeah, and you know, like, so, and I guess it's, you know, you have to come at it, you know, you come at it with the angle she does, but also at a different angle because of the age gap. Yeah. You know, she's teaching, what, like, is it elementary school age?
Yeah, she teaches
and then you have to come at it with a high school, you know, age range, which, you know what I mean? And I don't want to say it's not hard, because it is, I'm sure, but, you know, it hadn't been that long since you were in a high school, so you kind of remember, like,
that's true.
how things, you know, how our brains operated, or how yours operated then, and you can kind of connect with them on that deeper level, which that's one thing that I've said with Noah being the youth pastor, which is the great thing, is, you know, he can connect with the students on a way, you know, that a lot of youth pastors can't, because, you know, they're older, you know, but he's still in college, and he gets where we're coming from with the school stuff and like the stresses that come with that. And that's one thing that I've just loved hearing, like, whether it be with Will, with you, or with Noah, like, even though you guys are young, you have so much knowledge to give to all of us.
Yeah, and I could tell you more about that whenever we get to your youth questions. Yeah. But back to the worship question. So with that, I get to learn a lot from Pastor Jeff Lay, and Miss Christie. But with college, I was the worship leader for about a year, especially whenever we started meeting in the college room, which used to be the old which used to be the old youth room. And I led then just because Will needed somebody to. And at that point, like, we were dating. I was a student.
Yeah.
So I did that. But once we got married, I knew that, and you brought it up earlier, like, I didn't want people to think, oh, Aiyana does the worship, Will does the preaching. It's the Will and Aiyana show. And I didn't want that. And I also wanted students to lead. So some of the stuff that I learned from Pastor Jeff Lay, and Miss Christie, I got to implement that in how I helped college students with how they're leading and such. And they do such a great job.
Yeah.
They love Jesus. So.
And, you got to stick Daniel up there. Of course you do.
Oh, of course. Daniel is somebody who I knew when he was younger. I think I met Daniel when he was like 15.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And this is when I first got here.
Yeah.
So just seeing him grow, and then I remember like when he got the internship, I remember him telling me that he was gonna go to school for music. He felt the Lord calling him to that, and it was great. So just seeing him grow into becoming a worship leader as well is super neat.
And now that now he's in control of the youth band, which is great to see him grow in that with just because I got to work with him and see how he worked and everything. And again, that's always so fun to see how somebody operates on a day-to-day basis and how they work. And just to see him grow where he came from. Like, I'll give you an example. The Wild Adventures event was great, but I could see where it could improve, and that he's done a wonderful job. Since then with the youth band, and with this Savannah trip that's going to be coming up soon.
Yeah, that was also his first time ever doing something like that. And I think it went really well.
It did. For the first time, it went really, really well.
Yeah.
And, what's so cool is, like, now there's, like, a team around the youth. Like, you've got Daniel, you've got Noah, and then there's a few other people as well. Like, Gavin's taking pictures and stuff with us, and all that, too. And so there's, like, a youth team, if you will. And that's really cool to see.
It's super cool. Yeah, Daniel's doing a really good job.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, what has been the most challenging part for you about being a pastor's wife that you could,
So with this, I wouldn't just say, I'm not going to just say it's challenging because it's really rewarding.
Right, yeah.
So, and just to say that again, like, I've only been married to Will for 8 months. So being on this side of ministry with him, I can't say that I've had like big challenges like maybe Pastor Robbie and Miss Laura have. But I mean, I think a big thing that just is kind of difficult is just whenever you're in this side of ministry now, like, I mean, you're building like relationships with people, and there are going to be sometimes that like you see a person doing something maybe they shouldn't be, and you just want to go to that person just like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing that, like turn back to Jesus or something like that. And I mean, you can't do that, all you can do is just really pray for them. So, but I think the biggest thing that's a struggle or like a challenge is if Will struggles or if Will's upset, then I'm upset with him.
Right. Yeah.
So, but thankfully we haven't had like challenges or any, like, not saying that they're not gonna come. Yeah. But but it's just been more rewarding. Like, I absolutely love like being married to Will and just doing ministry with him, and especially seeing like his passion for evangelism and his love for Jesus, and then getting to be there right alongside with him, and bringing college students.
I could see his passion even through D now, even though he was sick. Well, I mean, he was pushing through. Yeah. But I mean, he was pushing through. Like, even like the lessons, even though he had to shorten some or whatever because his voice was killing him, what he was saying was like so good. You can just see that passion. Yeah. And it's so funny. Like, some people have told me like, oh, what you said was good. I'm like, I'm not no preacher. Like, I'm not gonna, like, I've even told myself like for that the FCA episode or whatever, I'm just gonna sound just like this. I'm not because I know that. Some people, I know they're worried about, like, oh, what if I get up and speak or something, and it doesn't sound like, my pastor at my church. It's not supposed to be, because, you're two different people, and God's going to use you in different ways. Yeah. And,
don't compare your walk to somebody else's walk, because Brother Robbie's been walking a lot longer than Will has. Miss Laura's been walking a lot longer than I have. Right. So, your relationship with Jesus is personal. So, Yeah, but you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, it's so rewarding, and just seeing people come to Christ, and then I get to, even though I'm not the worship leader anymore, I still help out.
Yeah.
But just seeing students who were a little of like who enjoyed singing and were afraid to lead, now leading like with passion, and they're like bringing people to church, and just seeing them like come to Jesus, it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's great.
And from what it seems like, if the youth that are doing the worship now, even if they don't go off to
Come to VSU.
college,
Stay here.
if they don't go off to college,
this is for any youth listening. Go to VSU.
we're gonna have even an amazing group of kids coming through for the worship, and adding on to what you guys already have, which I'm excited, because. I can see, because we have, because of that bigger stage, we can fit more people on there now.
Yep.
We have a bass player now.
Yeah.
Like 3 guitars now.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and then I know there's they trade out on the keys. I know that Mikey's sister, and then I can't think of her other name. If she's listening, I'm so sorry. I'm just really bad with names.
Is it Lexi?
Yes, Lexi. Yeah. Yes, she's trading out. They trade out on the keys, which is I think they did that the first night they did that was the Christmas party we had.
Okay.
And it was so cool. It was like, oh my gosh, we got so many people wanting to do this on the youth band that they were having to trade people out.
Yeah.
And that is a good problem to have.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I know Austin when he was here, talking about Austin Williams when he was here for D now, he talked about, we wanted to pack that room so full that, they have to put a new one. I'm like, Austin, we just built that new one. Hold up. Like, I thought that
fill
was...
it up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know no one wants to fill it up with 150 chairs. Like, I can't remember what night. But on a Wednesday night, he wants to fill it with 150 people. I'm like,
that's a good goal.
We're gonna make it happen, Noah.
Yep.
It's like we already had over 90 people yesterday.
Yeah, that's
which
awesome.
Is, on a school night, that's what's crazy to me is that we're coming from all different schools, like 3 main school districts, and we're packing the youth room, every Wednesday.
Yeah, and if every person in that room brought one person, you'd make your meet goal like that.
Mm-hmm. We'd have to get more chairs and put them up on the stage.
Yeah.
So after the worship band's done, just put them up on stage.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So now we're gonna go into youth questions, and we can kind of touch back on some of the stuff we talked about earlier.
Okay.
But when you look at the youth today, do you see hope, or are you worried about the future?
Oh, absolutely hope.
Mm-hmm.
And some of we already talked about a lot of it, but me being at the school, I see our students like telling people about Jesus. I see our students inviting them to church. I see their example of how if some students, are not acting in the most godly way, they're standing firm in being that light to them. But not only that, Dino a couple weeks ago.
I know, yeah.
Like, you had all of those students worshiping. You had 22 students come to know Jesus. And you even said, like, the Bible conference that's coming up. I know how many people are, like, super excited for that to be coming. And, no, there's absolutely hope. And another thing you just mentioned, the youth band. Like, having all those youth who are willing to serve. Right. That's the future. You guys have probably talked about this on this podcast before, but it's young people, youth, who are starting, like, these revivals and these movements. Yes. So, no, there's absolutely hope. If all of these people are still, like, striving to go and serve Jesus, then, yeah.
I know that there'll be people, like, that when we bring up revivals, I just think of the Asbury one that happened, about a year or two ago. I know some people were, like, saying, well, what if it's just like, oh, it's like a spiritual high thing. Well, see what, before we open our mouths, let's see what God does with it. Yeah. And that's when something like that happens like that, that's something that always kind of, like, bugs me a little bit. Is somebody is, like, really quick to, like, shoot it down, like, let's see what he's got.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we don't know. Again, you might be right. There might be some people that are riding off that spiritual high, but I don't think all of them were. There couldn't have been. Do you see how many kids are in there?
Yeah.
I think college, I don't know how young it went, but still, I believe that can happen again. It happened in the 70s, it happened then, it can happen again now. And I don't see why not, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I loved what Austin shared at D Now. It's just where he shared that Billy Graham quote. It's just like, if you're wanting to see a revival, draw a circle around yourself and then see what happens there. So,
yeah. Yep. That was really good. Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone struggling to navigate this world in a biblical way?
So just to remember this one thing for sure. Remember that we're not of the world. And that's shared in John 15:19. If you are of the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, and that's why the world hates you. I totally paraphrase that. But it's essentially saying that, like, we don't belong here. This is not our home. And because of we aren't the world, we shouldn't be looking for guidance or affirmation or gratification from the world. So my encouragement is just to stick to what the word says about Christ and how he loves us and how we should live. So a verse that I think about is just like, like God choosing us. I think about 1 Peter 2:9, and it says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, so that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." So just really know that Christ sees you as that. And there's so many different scripture, like so much. Ooh, let me repeat that.
You're good.
There's so many verses in scripture that talks about like how much he loves you and how he sees you and such. So don't allow the world to say who you are. Christ already said that you're his child. So,
That's good.
Yeah, and another thing is to memorize scripture. So I know a lot of people who...
And that's hard for me, I'll admit. That is hard for me to do.
Oh, it is for me too.
Yeah.
But, it's not meant to be easy. I mean,
Nope.
a relationship, you have to work at it if you want to grow with the Lord. So, like, my life verse is 1 Peter 5:6-7. So, therefore, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that may he exalt you at the proper time, casting all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. So, that's just showing, that verse right there for me, it's just like, I know for me, I struggle with, like, asking for help. Like, I want to do things on my own, and, I need to humble myself because I cannot do it on my own. So, it's just verses like that. If you just surround yourself by that and you just remember what the Lord has said.
That's good. I love it. So, for the third question for the youth, why do you think people, especially young people, run away when they hear the name Jesus?
So, have you ever heard of the gospel being offensive?
Yeah.
So, what I mean so the gospel is considered by some people offensive. It's because it's essentially telling you you're a bad person. You're very sinful. But people focus on that part. It's just like, you're telling me that I'm wrong.
And they won't want to hear the rest.
Exactly. So, and they forget that you may be a sinful person, but Jesus still loves you. And how does he love you? He died on the cross for you. And he defeated death and sins and then resurrected 3 days later so you can have a relationship with him. So the little gospel presentation right there. But I think that's why people run away. It's just they don't want to change how they're living because they don't want people to tell them how they're living wrong.
Right.
So like living of the world,
and some people can have their heart so hard and they're just like,
yeah,
and they're just sturdy as a rock. You try so hard and I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
It's like, because in our, in our hearts and our minds, it's simple. Like, so we've heard it and we've studied it.
Yeah.
But for them, we have to remember it's not so simple. And that's one of the things I've tried to, tell people on this podcast is, when you're going up to, present the gospel to somebody, like, be easy with it. Like, don't throw all your knowledge at them at one time, because then that'll scare them, because they're like, what? Like, then they won't really understand, because they're getting so much information, and they're like, you want to be easy with it, because it's completely new. Like, for some, you don't know if they've ever seen it or ever heard it, and you got to be really easy with it. Especially with, like, say, students in lounge. If you're sharing, like, you never know. Like, I know we're in the Bible Belt, but you never know where their home life is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have to be really careful with it, but also, be firm about it. Be firm about it, but also careful with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you just have to remember that the reason you're doing it is because you love them, not just because, yeah, you said that. Never mind. But it's just because you love them. Yeah.
Exactly. But for my final question, if you could describe NBC in one word, what would it be and why?
So it's really hard to come up with just one word, just because of how much I love Northside. Like, I think the word that I could come up with at the end is home, just because of the relationships that I've gained here. Like, you know, I met Will here. You know, Will proposed here, got married here.
Yep.
So, and then just, like, the pastors' wives and how they've, like, taken me in and just, like, encouraged me and such. And then there are just so many other people who I've just built those long-lasting relationships with. And not just, like, friendships, but they're godly relationships who care for my spiritual well-being and who just care for me in general.
Yeah.
So, but I know that just because of the community here that's at Northside, like, I've just grown so much, and it's because of that.
And I definitely would, you know, say something along the same lines. You know, I would say family, for again, you know, for me, like, I would say the same. And it's, the reason is because, I mean, again, I brought it up earlier, you know, with the amount of kids that are coming from different school systems, you know, but we're all, like, we all talk a lot. We, you know, like, me and Asa, like, we talk a lot, and we're from different schools. And then, you know, me and the other Charlie, we talk a lot, and, you know, from different schools. And, like, that's so cool to me because it wouldn't have happened if we didn't go here.
Yeah.
You know, there's some of the most supportive and loving kids. I mean, shoot, I don't know if you've seen it, but they're running around with all these Young Minds shirts on like crazy.
Yeah, I saw. Like, so, I gotta get one of those.
Yeah, like I think it was, I mean, it's been a couple Wednesdays, but like I think like yesterday there was about at least 10 people wearing Young Minds shirts running around like in the youth group, and I was like, heck yeah. Like,
yeah, that's cool.
And that's just cool to see because, you know, there's a scripture on the back, and they're not afraid to wear that scripture on their back. You know, I know that, you know, they come to youth every Wednesday, but, you know, you never know. Like, you know, they might just be going to go through the motions, right?
Yeah.
But they're supportive of me and what we're doing to try to get back to missions, but also they're not afraid to wear God's word on their back and then letting people read it, because my mom said that because sometimes when I'm up here, she'll go to the store, do other things, and she said that there was a guy that she was in Walmart, she was wearing that shirt, and they were reading that verse off the back of her shirt.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, that's cool. Like,
yeah, that's really cool.
Then that's the impact that we want to have with that verse on the back.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes it's, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's Colossians 3:23 through 24. You know, it's do with all your heart in the Lord, and, you know, and only do it for the Lord, right?
Yep.
And, you know, like, and that's really encouraging for some people because they might be trying to do something and get through it. And they're like, why am I doing this? Well, if you remember you're doing it for God, then you might have a better mindset about it. Yeah. And, you know, and that could just go for life, right? You know,
Absolutely.
you're just trying to get through. You're just trying to get through a hard situation. You're like, what's going on? And then if you just remember that, then you can really get through it. But is there any final words of encouragement, thoughts, or anything you want to say before we get out of here?
No, I think your verse that you have on your shirt, Colossians 3:23 through 24, I mean, that sums it up. Serve the Lord, love doing it.
And, you know, I'll say this, what's funny about that is I got that from Mikey's episode, his first episode he ever did. He's done 2.
Yeah?
And it was from all the way back in episode 9. We did an episode on the Christian work ethic, and he brought that up. And I thought it just fit because, you know, people are like, man, this whole podcast looks like a full-time job. And, like, you're committed to it, and you're determined. And so I was like, what's that verse that'll fit? That one will fit. Yeah. And, you know, and it was so funny. He's like, man, I got to get a shirt. That's like my life verse you put on the back of that shirt.
Yeah,
I got to get one.
That's good.
And, so, yeah, he ended up getting one. But, like, it's so cool how that came full circle. Like, you know, I've almost done about 80 episodes, and that verse all the way back from one of the first 10 episodes is what's on the back of the shirt.
Yeah, it's super cool. It's super cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And who knows, we have to do it again. You know, I don't know. Maybe we'll come back on with you, and we'll just do...
Ask us marriage advice.
Yes.
8 months of marriage. We totally know everything.
Yeah, but like we have to, you know, get you back on and see what you guys have to say.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So. But again, thank you so much again, and you know, I'm excited to see what God does with it.
Yep.
With another episode of the Young Minds Podcast coming to a close, I just want to remind you that you are never alone and faith is action. So let's get out there.